the WWII vegetables that grow like trees, plant once, harvest for decades. Why did they disappear, the forgotten food giants of World War II? During World War II, food wasn't just nutrition, it was survival. With supply chains shattered, fertilizers rationed, and millions of men sent to war, governments urgently searched for crops that could produce massive food yields with minimal labor. What they rediscovered were not modern hybrids, but ancient perennial vegetables, plants that behaved less like seasonal crops and more like trees. These vegetables were planted once and harvested year after year, sometimes for decades. They thrived in poor soil, survived harsh winters, and fed families even when everything else failed. Yet today, most people have never heard of them. So what were these tree-like vegetables, and why did they vanish after the war? These were not literal trees but perennial vegetables, plants that regrow every year from the same roots or woody base. Unlike annual crops such as cabbage or carrots, which must be replanted every season, these vegetables developed deep root systems, required little maintenance, became more productive over time, and could survive neglect, frost, and drought. For wartime families, that meant food security without constant labor. So, let's talk about the most important perennial vegetables that played a big role during World War II. First up is perennial kale, also known as Daubenton's kale, often called tree kale. This plant could grow over 6 feet tall and honestly, it would produce edible leaves all year round. During World War II, it became pretty popular in parts of Britain and Scandinavia because it never needed replanting. It survived snow and bombing disruptions, and yeah, you could harvest the leaves every single week. Families treated it like a living food reserve, just cut what you needed, and it kept on growing. Next is the Jerusalem artichoke, or sunchoke. Despite its name, this isn't actually an artichoke. It's a sunflower relative with edible underground tubers. So, why did it matter during the war? Well, it grew in terrible soil, required almost no care, produced huge yields, and returned every year, even after harvesting. In occupied Europe, it became a last resort famine crop, one that honestly kept people alive when fields were destroyed. Sea kale grows thick, woody stems and large leaves. Once established, it can produce for 20 years or more. During World War II, coastal communities relied on it heavily. It resisted salt, wind, and cold, and provided early spring food when nothing else was available. It was often described as plant once, feed a family for a generation. These onions reproduce by growing new bulbs on top of their stalks which fall over and replant themselves. Why were they ideal for wartime? Well, they were self-propagating, required no seed saving, were cold-hardy and pest-resistant, and could be harvested multiple times a year. Many World War II victory gardens included them without ever replanting. Good King Henry is an ancient European vegetable, kind of similar to spinach, and it was once common near monasteries and villages. Its strengths: it thrived in poor soil, regrew after every harvest, required no fertilizer, and grew reliably for decades. By World War II, it was already fading from use, but wartime scarcity briefly brought it back. These plants shared one crucial trait: they didn't depend on industrial systems. They needed no synthetic fertilizer, no seed companies, no yearly plowing, and just minimal tools. In an era of ration books and labor shortages, perennial vegetables were, honestly, biological resilience. So, why did they disappear after World War II? After the war, governments really pushed for chemical fertilizers, hybrid seeds, and mechanized farming. Annual crops fit this system perfectly, but, well, perennials just did not. So, you can't really sell seeds every single year for a plant that lives, say, 30 years. Perennials were honestly hard to patent, and they were super easy to propagate at home. People often shared them freely between neighbors. All of that, well, it made them pretty bad business. So, as supermarkets became more common, people started wanting things like uniform vegetables, predictable harvests, and fast-growing crops. Slow, woody, and, strange-looking vegetables just got left behind. Most of these plants, were handed down through oral tradition, not written in textbooks. and when wartime gardeners passed away, their knowledge kinda disappeared right along with them. With rising food costs, climate instability, and fertilizer shortages, these World War II vegetables suddenly make a lot of sense again. Modern permaculture experts now recognize that perennials build soil, they resist climate extremes, and they reduce dependency on global supply chains. So, what was once dismissed as old-fashioned is now, well, seen as future-proof farming. These vegetables didn't disappear because they failed. They disappeared because, honestly, they worked too well outside the system.